My name is Isabella, and I'm 33 years old. I work as a primary school teacher in a quiet little town surrounded by trees and friendly neighbors. I live with my husband, Ryan, and our 7-year-old daughter, Clara. We have a small white house with a garden full of roses that Ryan planted for me on our first anniversary. Every morning, I walk Clara to school, and Ryan kisses us goodbye before heading to work. Life felt peaceful, almost perfect. I often thought of myself as one of the lucky ones, a woman who had everything she ever wanted, a loving husband, a sweet child, and a simple but happy life. We laughed at dinner, watched movies on weekends, and told Clara bedtime stories until she fell asleep in our arms. Back then, I truly believed nothing could ever break our world. But I had no idea how quickly life could change. Life with Ryan and Clara was full of small, beautiful moments. Every morning, we had breakfast together at the kitchen table. Toast, eggs, and a pot of coffee that Ryan always made for me. Clara loved to talk about her dreams from the night before, and Ryan would listen with a smile, pretending to be surprised every time. Our mornings were filled with laughter and warmth, the kind of ordinary happiness that people often take for granted. After work, I usually came home to the smell of dinner already cooking. Ryan loved to surprise me with new recipes, even if they didn't always turn out right. "You are my everything," he often said, kissing my forehead as Clara ran around the table, giggling. We were not a perfect family, but in our little world, it felt perfect enough. Sometimes, in the evenings, we would sit on the porch, watching the sunset fade behind the hills. Ryan would hold my hand while Clara chased fireflies in the garden. The air was soft, and the world seemed calm. I often found myself thinking about how we first met. Two young people sitting next to each other at a friend's wedding, laughing about how bad the music was. From that moment, everything between us felt natural and easy. We fell in love quickly, got married a year later, and built our life step by step. Nothing about it was grand or dramatic. It was simple, honest, and full of love. Every time I looked at Ryan and Clara, I felt grateful. I thought this peace would last forever. It was a Friday night in early spring. Ryan had been invited to his best friend's birthday party at a nearby restaurant. I wasn't feeling well that evening, a small cold, nothing serious, so I told him to go without me. He hesitated at first, but I smiled and said, "Go on, have fun. I'll be fine." I spent the night curled up on the couch, drinking tea and watching an old movie until I fell asleep. The next morning, I woke to the sound of the front door closing. Ryan had just come home. He looked different. His eyes were tired, his face pale, and there was a strange silence between us. He didn't reach for his usual morning hug. Instead, he sat down at the edge of the bed, hands shaking slightly. "Isabella," he began softly, "I need to tell you something." Those words alone made my heart tighten. My pulse quickened, and a quiet fear rose inside me. He took a deep breath, unable to meet my eyes. "Last night, I had too much to drink," he said. "And I kissed someone. It was my ex." For a moment, I thought I had misheard him. My heart stopped, then started beating so hard I could hear it echoing in my ears. My hands turned cold. I stared at him, waiting for him to say it was a joke, a mistake, anything. But he didn't. His face was full of shame. My voice came out shaking. "You what?" "It didn't mean anything," he said quickly. "I was drunk, it just happened. I swear, I stopped it immediately. I'm so sorry, Isabella." "A kiss. Just a kiss," he said. But in that moment, it felt like everything I had ever trusted broke apart. A kiss broke everything I believed in. Tears filled my eyes, but my anger was stronger. I stood up, my whole body trembling. "You betrayed me, Ryan," I whispered. "You betrayed us." He reached for my hand, but I stepped back. "Please, let me explain," he pleaded. I shook my head, tears finally falling. "There's nothing left to explain. You need to leave." My voice was calm, but final. Ryan froze, his eyes full of regret. Then, slowly, he nodded and walked toward the door. I turned away before he left, because I couldn't bear to watch him go. That morning, the house felt colder than ever. That same afternoon, Ryan kept calling. I didn't answer. My phone buzzed again and again, but I couldn't bring myself to pick it up. My heart was too raw, my thoughts too loud. By evening, I heard his car outside. Through the window, I saw him standing there in the rain, soaked, desperate. He looked up, hoping I'd open the door, but I didn't move. Finally, I stepped outside. The air was cold and heavy with silence. "Please, Isabella," he said, his voice breaking. "It was a mistake. I swear I love you. I'll do anything to make it right." His eyes were red, his hands trembling. For a second, I almost saw the man I fell in love with, the man who built a home with me, who made me laugh every morning. But then I remembered his words, "I kissed my ex." And the pain came rushing back like a wave. Before I could answer, my phone rang again. It was his mother. "Isabella dear," she said gently, "men make mistakes. You should think about your daughter. Families must stay together." Her words cut deep, not because they were cruel, but because part of me wanted to believe them. But another part, stronger, wiser, knew better. I took a deep breath and said, "Love is not enough without trust. I can't teach my daughter to accept a love built on lies." There was silence on the other end of the line. When I hung up, Ryan was still there, waiting, rain dripping from his hair. "I'll wait for you," he whispered, voice almost gone. I looked at him one last time and said quietly, "Don't." The door closed between us. That night, the rain didn't stop. I sat on the couch in the dark, listening to it hit the windows, feeling the emptiness spread through every corner of the house. The smell of his cologne still lingered in the air, cruel and comforting at the same time. Outside, I noticed something by the door, a bouquet of white lilies, already soaked through by the rain. I stood there for a long time, staring at them, before finally whispering to myself, "No matter what happens, I won't go back." My heart still loved him, but my soul knew it was over. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Life became quieter, slower, and strangely heavy. Ryan had moved out, and the house felt too big for just me and Clara. At first, the silence was unbearable. Every sound reminded me of what was missing: the laughter at dinner, the footsteps in the hallway, the voice that used to say goodnight. But life doesn't stop for pain. I still had to wake up every morning, prepare breakfast, take Clara to school, and go to work. People at school smiled at me the same way they always did, but they didn't know that sometimes I cried in the car before walking into class. At night, when Clara was asleep, I often stood by her bed and watched her breathe peacefully. Her small face looked so innocent, untouched by the pain that had broken our home. I would whisper to myself, "What kind of love should my daughter learn from me?" That question became my strength. I didn't want her to grow up thinking love meant accepting pain or betrayal. I wanted her to see that love also meant respect, honesty, and courage. So I learned to stand on my own. I paid the bills, fixed the leaking faucet, and learned to sleep alone. Slowly, loneliness turned into independence. The sadness didn't disappear, but it softened. I found peace in small things: the morning sun, Clara's laughter, a quiet cup of tea after work. I realized that peace is not the same as happiness, but sometimes, it's even more valuable. I was not happy, but I was calm. And calm was enough. A whole year passed. The seasons changed, and so did I. The pain that once felt endless began to fade, replaced by something quieter: acceptance. Ryan never stopped being a father. Every Saturday morning, exactly at 10, he came to pick up Clara. He never arrived late, never raised his voice, never crossed the line. At first, I kept my distance. I would stand by the door, handing Clara her backpack while avoiding his eyes. He always greeted me politely, "Good morning, Isabella," as if he didn't expect anything more. There was no pleading, no drama, just a quiet respect. And somehow, that silence spoke louder than any apology. I began to notice little things. He had stopped drinking completely. He looked healthier, calmer, more grounded. He talked to Clara about school, art, and her favorite books. Sometimes, I would watch them from the window as they played in the garden. Clara's laughter filled the air, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel pain hearing it, I felt warmth. He never tried to push me or ask for another chance. He just showed up, again and again, with patience and honesty. That consistency started to heal something inside me. One evening, Clara came home after spending the day with him. She showed me a drawing, the three of us holding hands under a big sun. "Daddy says he's sorry every day," she said. I smiled faintly, my chest tightening. That night, as I washed the dishes, I thought about Ryan. About how he used to be, and who he had become. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. It means freeing your heart. I whispered those words to myself, realizing they were true. Forgiveness was not about letting him back into my life. It was about letting go of the pain that chained me to the past. And yet, somewhere deep inside, I felt a small, fragile hope begin to bloom. The next weekend, when Ryan came to drop Clara off, I opened the door and, for the first time in a year, invited him in for tea. He looked surprised, almost uncertain, but smiled softly. We sat in silence at the same table where everything once fell apart. This time, the silence didn't hurt. It felt peaceful, like the beginning of something new. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon in early summer. The sunlight fell gently across the garden, where Clara was watering the flowers she and her father had planted together. Ryan arrived earlier than usual, carrying a small box of gardening tools. He smiled shyly at me from the gate. "Do you need help with the roses?" he asked. His voice was calm, humble. I nodded, and together we began to work, pulling weeds, trimming branches, sharing small, careful words. It felt natural, like two people learning how to speak again after a long silence. When we finished, Ryan sat on the porch steps, wiping his hands. "Isabella," he said softly, "I don't expect anything from you. I just want you to know that I still love you. You and Clara are everything to me. I'll keep proving that, no matter how long it takes." His words didn't feel like a promise, they felt like truth. I looked toward Clara, laughing among the roses, her face bright and innocent. In that moment, something inside me melted. I walked closer to Ryan and said quietly, "I forgive you. Not because I'm weak, but because I'm strong enough to love again." He looked at me with tears in his eyes, unable to speak. The sun glowed behind us, painting everything in soft light. For the first time in a long while, I felt peace, real peace. Sometimes love needs time. Sometimes forgiveness is the most powerful form of love. Would you give someone a second chance? Tell us in the comments below. If you liked this story, please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more emotional English stories.